Long ago, in a peaceful village nestled between the hills of the great Savannah, people lived simple lives. The villagers followed traditions passed down through generations. One such tradition was the warning, never bath at night. The elders spoke of an ancient curse that would befall anyone who dared to disregard the rule. But as time went on, the younger generations began to question this tradition. Little did they know, a terrible truth awaited those who ignored the warning. Once upon a time, there was a young man named Kofi. He was known for his curiosity and boldness. Kofi had heard the elders tell stories about the dangers of bathing at night, but he never believed them. What harm could a simple bath do? He often wondered. His friends laughed at the old stories, mocking the idea of a night bath curse. One evening, after a long day of work under the hot sun, Kofi felt an overwhelming urge to cool off. The sun had set, and the stars had begun to twinkle in the dark sky, but the night air was still warm. He walked down to the river, where the cool waters called to him like a soothing lullaby. "I'll be quick," Kofi thought. "I won't let the old stories scare me." As he stepped into the river, the water felt refreshing against his skin. He bathed, splashing the cool water over his face and body, blissfully unaware of the warning passed down through generations. The village was silent, and the only sound was the rustling of the trees. Kofi didn't notice that as he bathed, the water around him seemed to grow darker, like shadows were creeping up from the depths. As Kofi finished his bath, he felt an eerie chill settle over him. The air seemed to grow colder, and the once calm water began to swirl around his feet. He looked around, but the village was quiet, with only the sound of the night birds echoing in the distance. But then, something strange happened. From the depths of the river, he heard a soft whisper. It was faint at first, like the wind rustling through the trees. But then it grew louder, clearer, and more distinct. "Kofi! Kofi, you should not have bathed at night." Kofi froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked around, but there was no one in sight. The voice seemed to be coming from the very water itself, a voice so old, so ancient, it sent a shiver down his spine. He tried to shake it off, thinking it was just his imagination. But the voice continued, getting louder with every passing moment. "You have broken the ancient law, the curse is upon you." Kofi's mind raced. He had heard the stories of the river spirits who were said to protect the water, but he had always dismissed them as nothing more than old tales. But now, standing in the river, he began to fear that there was some truth to them. He quickly finished his bath and hurried back to the village, his heart still racing, the whispers echoing in his ears. When he reached the village, everything seemed normal at first. But as he walked into his hut, he felt a strange presence following him. His skin prickled, and the shadows seemed to dance in the corners of his eyes. The village had always been safe, but now, it felt different, darker. That night, Kofi tossed and turned in his sleep. Strange dreams filled his mind. In his dream, he stood in the middle of the village square, but there was no one around. The air was thick, heavy with an unnatural stillness. Then, from the shadows, figures began to emerge, tall, ghostly figures with hollow eyes, their faces pale and blank. Kofi tried to run, but his feet felt like they were stuck in the ground. The figures closed in on him, and one of them whispered, "You broke the rule. You bathed at night. The curse has come for you." Kofi woke up with a start, gasping for air. Sweat drenched his body, and his heart raced in his chest. It was still dark outside, and the village was quiet. He glanced around nervously, but everything seemed calm. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. His dream had felt too real. The following morning, Kofi tried to go about his day, but something was off. As he walked through the village, he noticed people staring at him, their eyes filled with fear and suspicion. It was as if they knew something had changed. No one spoke to him, and when he passed by, the villagers would cross to the other side of the road. Kofi's stomach twisted with unease. That night, the whispers returned. This time, they were louder, more insistent. Kofi! Kofi, you have angered us. You have broken the law, and now you must pay. As the voice echoed in his ears, Kofi realized with dread that the curse was real. He had been warned, but his curiosity had led him astray. He now faced the consequences of his actions, and the night was no longer safe. Kofi spent the next few days in a haze of confusion and fear. The villagers continued to avoid him, and the whispers grew louder each night. It was as if the river spirits were watching his every move. Kofi could feel their presence all around him, behind him in the shadows, in the rustling of the leaves, in the cool breeze that blew through the village. Desperate, Kofi sought out the village elder, Nana Oma, the wisest woman in the village. She had always been a source of guidance for the people, her knowledge of the old ways unmatched. When Kofi found her, she was sitting outside her hut, her eyes closed as if she were waiting for him. Nana Oma, please, Kofi begged, his voice trembling. I have made a terrible mistake. I bathed at night, and now the spirits are after me. The curse is real. What should I do? Nana Oma opened her eyes slowly and looked at him with a knowing expression. She didn't seem surprised, only saddened. Kofi, she said softly, the elders have warned for generations not to bath at night. It is not a mere superstition. The spirits of the river are ancient, and they protect the waters. When you bath at night, you disturb them. You awaken their anger. Kofi swallowed hard, the weight of his actions pressing down on him. But I didn't know. I didn't believe in the curse. Nana Oma nodded. That is the problem. The curse does not require belief. It requires respect for the old ways. The spirits are patient, but they will come for those who do not listen. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Kofi stood at the edge of the river, the water now appearing darker than ever before. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, and Kofi could feel the presence of the spirits surrounding him. He had come to ask for forgiveness, hoping that the river spirits might lift the curse and restore peace to his life. He stepped into the river, his heart pounding in his chest. The water was cold, far colder than it had been the night he bathed. The river seemed to pulse with a life of its own, and the air around him grew thick with tension. Kofi, the voice of the spirit echoed from the depths, why have you come? I seek forgiveness, Kofi said, his voice barely above a whisper. I did not understand the power of the river. I was foolish and disrespected the old ways. Please, release me from the curse. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the voice returned, softer but no less powerful. You are forgiven, Kofi. But know this, those who break the laws of the spirits must carry the lesson for life. Never again will you bath at night. The river will protect you, but you must show respect. Kofi nodded, tears welling in his eyes. As he stepped out of the river, the whispers faded, and the chill in the air lifted. He knew the spirits had forgiven him, but he also understood the deeper lesson. Some traditions are more than just old stories, they carry wisdom that must be honored. From that day on, Kofi never bathed at night again, and he shared his story with others, warning them to respect the old ways, for the spirits were always watching. And so, the story of Kofi and the river spirits comes to a close, reminding us all of the wisdom hidden in our traditions and the importance of respecting the old ways. If you enjoyed this tale and wish to hear more enchanting folk tales from across the African continent, filled with lessons, mystery, and wonder, don't forget to subscribe. Stay tuned for more stories that inspire, teach, and transport you to magical worlds.